Hello, this is Wmpyr, here to talk to you guys about the appeal of sumo wrestling. So, first of all, um, I watch sumo wrestling because, of course, it's entertaining. Um, I have a tremendous respect for the competitors. But that being said, my main reason is because, for self-defense reasons, I feel that studying combat sports, um, you could take some things that you could apply to yourself and benefit from. And sumo wrestling is a combat sport, so definitely in that regards, I feel like it has something to offer. Now, compared to other combat sports such as boxing, wrestling, or MMA, what do I think? And each one has its own charms, and each one brings a different benefit to the table. So sumo wrestling has its own thing, and so one of the things is like with other sports, the way that you start, you are signaled. Like the ref tells you when to go, and then the match starts, or they ring a bell, or something along those lines. There's a signal. But with sumo wrestling, that signal is a little bit weird, for lack of a better word. It's you have to put both of your fists down to the ground, and the other guy, your opponent, also has to do the same. And when all four fists meet on the ground, that's when you start. So as you can imagine, that makes things a little tricky because the other guy might refuse. You know, it's all about this weird timing that happens. So sometimes a guy might put all four of his two of his fists down, like right away, and be like, "I'm ready to go, punk." It's you put down your fists, and the moment you do, I'm ready to go. So I'm putting mine down. And then there might be other people like, "No, you put your fists down first. Then I'll put mine." So or some people try to do it right at the exact same time. I'm gonna put mine, and then right we both go together, kind of thing. It just, this small ambiguity makes it more street, in my opinion, because in the street you don't know when it's gonna happen. Is this guy gonna sucker punch me? Is he just barking? He's all talk, and are we even gonna fight or not? You don't know. So that aspect makes it a little bit more street for me. It's interesting. The other part is, there's a lot of things that I'm taking out of sumo, but sumo is centered around the collision. Because they're both set. If you look at the way the sport is, it's set for the both of them to basically blast into each other. That's what this is made for, and you really can't run away. It's not for dodging and moving out and footwork and be real like that kind of technical. The technique here is different. In boxing, kickboxing, and MMA, you could be like, you know what, I'm gonna test out the waters with this guy, and if this guy hasn't done his cardio, he's gonna be in trouble because I'm gonna wear him down. You cannot do stuff like that here. It's just the so-called ring, the sumo wrestling ring, is just way too small for that, and it's so in that sense, it's like fighting in a very confined space, and if you fall down or you get pushed out, that's it. That's it. It's not like in wrestling where if you go out of the circle, you restart. No, this is the moment that happens, you lose. So in that sense, it's like it's more extreme in a sense. It's like an old school video game where you only have one life, so it's intense, you know. And the fact that they're like on this like small hill, it just makes the falling out part, or if someone gets thrown out, it just makes it that much more dangerous. And I think that makes it more, I would hate to say exciting, but it does make it more dynamic. It does make it scarier. It does, it brings the more chaotic and unpredictable street element in there. It's scarier in that sense. Because you could fall out for real and you could hurt yourself, and they do hurt themselves a lot just because it's like on this hill. I wish they would change that, honestly, because I like to see them be healthier, you know. Anyway, those are some of the things that I like for studying the self-defense aspect. And I'm also noticing the techniques that I'm seeing in sumo wrestling because, like I said, it's about dealing with that initial collision. How do you deal with someone that's aggressively coming at you? It's all about that. So the techniques that I'm seeing for that, to me, is very, very interesting. And in a way, what I'm doing is I already have my system, my self-defense system that I developed. I already have that. So as I'm watching sumo, I'm in a way putting it to a test in the sumo perspective. So in my mind, I am testing out my system by watching the sumo wrestlers and seeing their techniques and stuff like that. And some of the techniques are like the arm wrenching stuff. They do it. They do the same stuff. And then of course they don't strike, but the palm strikes, which aren't supposed to be strikes, by the way, they're supposed to be pushes. But believe me, that line gets crossed all the time. And I've seen stuff where they grab each other's and just yesterday I saw a guy, it looked like his thumb was going into the guy's Adam's apple. It looked violent. You see stuff like that all the time. So that, to me, is going to be along the lines of a very similar to what you see in the street, where a guy's going to come aggressively wailing on you, or whether those are crazy punches where they're just flailing punches at you, or they come just out of nowhere like in prison and like a shanking attack, or they just come out of nowhere and just grab you by the throat and pin you up against the wall. Those are the kinds of moves that I'm concerned about, and I feel like sumo wrestling showcases similar stuff, and the sumo wrestlers are constantly dealing with that kind of stuff. So it's wild to see that. I feel like it's very, very street applicable in that sense. Now, that being said, let me talk about the actual sport of sumo and its appeal. So for me, back in I remember watching this stuff in the 80s as a kid, and it was exciting then. But what I could tell you is that back then, they started bringing in foreigners, okay? And one of the first ethnic groups that they brought in were Polynesian. So we were talking about the Hawaiian, Polynesian sumo wrestlers started coming in, all right? And to me, that was exciting. That was exciting back then, and now that I think of it, it's super exciting today, and I wish we would see more of them today. I think the reason why we're not is, instead of doing sumo wrestling, they're going into professional wrestling. Maybe they thought because they achieved some good success there, maybe the money was different there. They went over there instead, I feel like. So that's why you see like Roman Reigns, The Rock, that lineage over there. But if you go back far enough, there was a guy called Haku. And interesting enough, Haku was a WWF professional wrestler when I was, here in the U.S. in the 90s. I even saw the guy one time in person. But anyway, what's interesting about him is that today, in a lot of these YouTube interviews, when they're interviewing professional wrestlers and they go, if you all fought for real, who was the toughest, baddest guy amongst you? And hands down, they all say Haku. So because of that, very, very interesting. So these Polynesian warriors were coming into the sumo market. How awesome is that? So back then they did that. Not only these Polynesian guys, they also brought in Russian guys. And this we saw in the world of MMA later on. It first started with the shoot fighting, so the UWF with Maeda Akira. He started bringing in Russian fighters, and actually, maybe it was even before him. Antonio Inoki was probably the first guy, but Maeda really, the guy that he brought in was a guy named Volk Han. And Volk Han is probably in Japan super famous. Over here in the U.S., nobody knows him, but everybody knows Khabib in the UFC. Well, Khabib is the same lineage as Volk Han. So if you guys just think about that, right? So these super tough Russian fighters were being brought over to Japan back in the day, not just for the professional wrestling shoot fighting circuit. Later on in Pride, and that's how we discovered the Emelianenko brothers, right? And before that, it was Igor Vovchanchin, who was Ukrainian. But and then later on, like I said, the Fedor was this dominant force. A lot of people consider him to be the best MMA fighter ever. So how exciting is that? So sumo wrestling was doing kind of the same thing, where they were bringing in the Russian fighters. Today, I would say sumo wrestling is more exciting than ever. They have the potential. You have the potential to see a Polynesian sumo wrestler, which I don't think I have, unfortunately. But I think the potential is there. Would love to see a Polynesian guy in the top ranks. We have Russian. We for sure have Russian sumo wrestlers in the top ranks. Oh boy, and they're a lot of times they're huge and they're strong. Very exciting to watch, and a different personality. And then what we have today, which we didn't have back in the day, is the Mongols. The Mongolian guys coming in. This is so exciting. This is, remember, historically they were the most dominant force on planet Earth. They conquered more of civilization than any other than any other group. These Mongolians. So these guys come into the sumo world and they are amazing. So it's awesome to watch that. So nothing, not to take away anything from the Polynesians, super ultra tough, not to take anything away from the Russians, ultra tough, but we also have the Mongolians in the sumo world today, and then the poor Japanese have to go up against all that. They all go up against each other, but it's just amazing to watch. I love it. It's super exciting. So that's definitely one of the appeals, to get to see that is super, super cool. Now, the other thing about sumo that's to me super exciting is that these guys are super smart. They study the crap out of each other. And the evidence of that is that once you have a guy that's dominating, or once you have a guy that has a really good move, right? All of a sudden, that person gets figured out. A lot of times they get figured out, so then they have to change, they have to evolve. So what I'm talking about is, like, in the UFC we had Ronda Rousey. She was just this incredible grappler, and she gets you in this armbar that was unstoppable, and she could just armbar anybody, right? She got figured out, and once she got figured out, it's difficult. No matter who you are, it's difficult to adapt and change your game. But you have to change your game because they figured you out. You've had success with it for so long, but now you're the target. So you got to change your game. So in sumo, you got to do that, right? She was able to retire, but in sumo world, if you don't do that, you're not going to make it. You're going to be gone. So one example is this guy called Midori Fuji. Midori means green. Fuji is for Fuji Mountain. So green Fuji, this guy is one of the smallest, is probably the smallest guy, bar none, in the top division. He's a little bit shorter than me, so he's about 5'9", and he's going up against guys literally twice his size. He has a move called kata sukashi. Kata sukashi is a cool move. I believe you could use it in the street too. Basically, you get an underhook, a deep underhook on the guy, and then you catch his shoulder with your other arm. So it's like you're doing a Muay Thai head control, head clinch, but with the guy's shoulder. Okay, but your right arm is doing the underhook. Okay, so you yank the guy down essentially. So in a way, it's kind of like an arm drag, but an arm drag, you pull the guy to you and you take his back. Well, this is you're yanking the guy down. So 1 second you're there, and the other second, all of a sudden you're gone, and there's this big old gap. There's this hole, and you drop him in, you yank him down into that hole, and the guy falls down. So that is the kata sukashi. Kata is the shoulder, and sukashi is I guess like a yank kind of. Yeah, that's the closest thing I could think of right now. It's not the most accurate translation, but yeah, that's what they're doing, or that's what this guy does. That's his favorite move. He's a master at this move, and he was using it. It's a perfect move for him because he has to be a counter fighter, being that small. He has no other choice. Everybody else is just way too strong, way too big, and they're just going to push, aggressively come at him. What can he do? He has to counter. So he developed that move. He became super good at it, and it was working for him. It was working big time for a while, but people figured it out, and that's what's so amazing about this. People will figure you out. So then you got to adapt. So this season, what I saw him do was he started. So last season, he got figured out, and it was brutal to watch because you just seeing the guy lose, and you feel sorry for him, And then this season, he changed his strategy, which is crazy. And you know what? It's just not that easy to do. Just because you change your strategy doesn't mean all of a sudden you're going to win. No. What he's doing now is he's aggressively going up against guys that are, like I said, twice his size. Why? To throw them off. They're going, oh, he's going to counterfight me. And he doesn't. He doesn't counterfight. He charges in at you. Okay? So that is exactly what he's doing. He's charging in at the opponent to throw them off guard. And it's wild because you think it wouldn't work at all. Going up against someone twice your size, he's able to hold his own. It's amazing to watch. So even if he loses, it's just great to see him work on this. And by charging in, it creates more opportunities for him to do his move. So if his charge is successful, he catches them off guard and he charges them, then he can suddenly switch. So it's just amazing to see stuff like that. And he's not the only case. There's other fighters there's this other guy, Ichi Yamamoto. This guy's strategy is pretty much the Wing Chun chain punch. He just runs at you with these, in sumo you can't punch, so it's these palm strikes, and he's rapid fire with them. Rapid fire. He's probably one of the fastest guys in the whole top division. So his stance is not even like a sumo wrestler stance. It looks more like a runner stance. So if he misses, he falls down big time because he's not in good balance. He's like a running, he's like in a running stance. So that's a very a sprinter stance, which is a poor balance. So he falls down, if they counter him and stuff. But if he doesn't and he lands that, he's able to dominate and push guys that are even bigger than him out, just overwhelms them with speed. Now, he was also finding that some dudes are just like freaking big walls, and you just, no matter how fast you are, at the end of the day, it's strength, and you can't push these guys. So what he did was he changed, instead of just doing it all to the face, which is what he used to do, he started changing it to where he was pushing up onto their armpit, so he gets a better grip and he can shove them back using that. So his chain punch, it's not a chain punch, but I'm just calling it a sumo chain punch, Wing Chun style. He's had to adapt that to where now he's using the middle to off balance them, and then when he gets clear, he could go back to the top and dominate their face. And so now it has two levels instead of before it was just one level. So he's had to evolve that. It's just so freaking awesome to see this kind of technical evolution for me. I feel like I'm learning with them. It's so satisfying and fun to watch for me. Anyway, another thing I got to bring up is the amount of matches these guys have is over here in the UFC. You see somebody's record, how many matches they've had. And unless you look at someone very special like Randy Couture, who is a anomaly, it's nothing compared to what these sumo wrestlers, or you hear about the Muay Thai fighters having like 200, 300 fights, which is crazy. That's crazy. Sumo wrestlers do that all the time. 200, 300, they even go more than that. You got guys, there was a guy that just reached 1,000 matches. Okay, so it's wild. The amount of matches, the sheer amount that they have is wild. So that's another thing to enjoy in seeing someone that, oh man, this guy, he's had 500 career bouts. and to watch his what kind of technique did this guy develop, and he's going up against a guy who is still a rookie. Let's see the difference, stuff like that. And injury is another very, very real thing. They got to deal with injury all the time. So some of it's not necessarily that the best fighter is going to dominate here. You also need the ability to be durable in this sport, the ability to take care of yourself, in a sense, in a sport that really doesn't take care of your body. I say that not to be mean, but it is a brutal sport. Like I said, they're wrestling old school, very traditional on that. It's called the dohyo, but their ring is on a hill, which causes a lot of injuries. That's one of the things that I really, really wish they would change, because it does make the adrenaline go up. I'm sure if anyone stood up on that and you see, oh, I'm going to do a wrestling match up on this, it's going to be scary to fall off of it, But another thing I got to bring up is, this is another appeal, is I've been watching sumo for about a year now. Up until this time, so about a year ago, there's been this guy called Fuji. And Fuji, I love his name because it sounds like Tyrannosaurus, because he really is a T-Rex. He is the apex predator in the sumo circuit. He's so freaking big. He's probably the strongest guy in there. And then on top of that, he's agile and he's technical and he's experienced. He has it all. It's like you can't top this guy, He has everything. And he has been so dominant. And so every season they have a tournament. That's how sumo goes. Every season they have a tournament, and this guy has won almost 10 tournaments, right? So he is their grand champion, he is the Yokozuna. So on top of that, he's just been winning tournament after tournament, and he's just been collecting tournament wins because he's already grand champion. What else can you do, you know? And he's just this completely unbeatable force. Now, some people like watching that. It's like watching Michael Jordan just come in and just dominate, right? In MMA, we had Fedor Emelianenko, who people still say is probably the best MMA fighter ever. Or in the UFC, you have John Jones, you know, who you could tell he's just in a league above everybody else, right? So this guy is kind of like that. He's just complete dominant force. Now, I started watching after he couldn't compete anymore. So right now he's just been, all the injuries have added up to the point where he just can't do it anymore. So he's been forced to withdraw. And he's been doing back-to-back withdrawals, right, where he can't compete. So what that does is it takes the sumo circuit, the top rank, the top division, into a world of chaos. Because now their grand champion is gone. It's vacant. It is vacant. So now anybody can win the tournament. It's a free-for-all now. So now it takes us back to like a historical time in Japan. Feudal wartime Japan. Warring states time. Where now you got a bunch of kingdoms and they all want to conquer. So all the wolves are hungry and they're going at it. So Europe-wise, it would be medieval Europe with, you know, like just war after war. And that's what we're seeing. So to me, this is super exciting. This is an extremely exciting point. I mean, it's great to see someone like Terano Fuji, who's literally, when I see that guy, it's like a T-Rex, or it's like watching you see other great white sharks swimming around, and then you see a megalodon just swim by slowly, and everyone just like moves out of the way. That's what he's like, right? But now we're getting to see this crazy intense battle. So every season, there's been a new tournament champion. Every time. No one's been consistent because it's that wild now. To me, this is super, super, super exciting. And because of his absence, there's like, oh, I think he's going to win. Oh, this guy's runner-up. Oh, this guy, he's going to be the new dominator. No, it's going to be this guy. It's this veteran. No, this guy, it's his time. This is his time to shine. And it's just, it doesn't go that way. You know, and then all of a sudden, two rookies came in. Two rookies came out of nowhere, and one rookie won last season, and the other rookie won this season. And now it's like the battle of the two rookie champs. Where did these guys come from? I don't know. And now they're going to go head to head next season. Super exciting. But still, the roster remains of the other guys. There's guys that it's like, oh no, is this guy turning into a has-been? He was the man. What happened to him? I don't know. Injury. And then there's another guy that, you know, this guy is brutal, but he's, you know, he is unable to give his 100% for some reason. There's this other guy. He is now just getting better and better and better and better, and now he's top contender. And there's a bunch of guys like this. So it's a wild time in sumo right now. Very wild. Lots of big changes happening. So to me, super, super exciting. Just wanted to share my excitement with you guys. So that's it for now. Thank you for listening, and take care, folks.